Hi, I'm Christopher Hein, and today we're going to be talking about the difference between theatrical martial art demonstrations, traditional martial arts demonstrations, and sparring. So we want to make another comparison video because I think it's important to understand that a lot of times when people see something and they think that a martial arts school looks a certain way or style looks a certain way, it's because they're seeing just sparring or just demonstration or just theatrical representation, right? So those three are pretty different. And so a lot of times when you see it, if you see only theatrical demonstrations from someone, you're like, whoa, that guy's like a god, they're so powerful, they're so amazing, they can do such great stuff. But you've never seen them spar, which might be very different, right? And also if you only see sparring, then you think like, oh, that's really crude and they don't know how to do things. They don't understand technically how stuff works. And that's because sparring's high stress and it's a different kind of environment than when you see a clean form. And also traditional forms, understanding what they're showing, which is a clear demonstration of a technique or a set of ideas in the form so that you can understand what's going on. So all three of those are different. You know, theatrical representation's main idea is to show you how cool something looks. Form's idea is to show you how technically it works and to try and illustrate some fine points. And a sparring is actually what would happen if two people engage. So a lot of times, you know, people looking at traditional jiu-jitsu, they're all, oh, you know, traditional jiu-jitsu is so much more elegant than modern Brazilian jiu-jitsu. The reason is because you really only see demonstrations of that. You don't see a lot of sparring of that. So you're only either seeing theatrical representation or a demonstration of technique, like a form. So it's important to understand the difference between all three of those. So I'm going to get Josh and Maya out here and we're going to show you the difference between those three kinds of interactions with the same two people. Josh, Maya? So that is a representation of theatrical martial arts. So that looks real cool and you can see lots of cool techniques done in there and awesome stuff was happening. And then of course, you know, we added some cool camera angles and stuff which makes it look even better. But that could be done without the cool camera angles as well, right? So that's what it looks like when two people are trying to make a show of something. And that's what you would see in a movie or a TV show or any kind of demonstration where someone wants to show really cool stuff. And it's like, look at how cool our martial art can look. Now that doesn't mean that that's how the sparring is going to play out, right? So the theatrical representation is really far from the sparring. Okay, let's see some of that same stuff now as a form. And remember, the form's purpose is educational. So here you should see a lot of clean stuff. It won't necessarily look real cool unless you're into forms, and then it will look super cool. But if you're not particularly into forms, then it's just going to look real simple and clean. Now that's also going to be different than sparring. So next we're going to look at forms and check out how that looks. Okay, so that is a classic form representation. So a classic form is what most martial arts of the traditional style tend to show a lot of. And because they show those traditional forms so much, we think that either A, they're prescribing that that's the way an actual conflict is going to play out, Or we think that the martial art is so elite that if someone tried to get us with that, we would use our super sweet skills, right? And so it's hard to maybe interpret what I just said, but if you're coming from a practical martial art where you're doing a lot of fighting and sparring and training, when you see that stuff, you're like, oh, these guys are silly because they think that's the way that fighting will turn out, and it doesn't turn out that way, and that's a silly idea. Or if you haven't spent a lot of time sparring and training hard, then you see that and you go, oh, this is so skilled that it's elevated above that simple sparring stuff, and it'll come out looking like this. It's neither one of those two. The truth is, it is a really clean and simplified way to look at the stuff that will happen in a sparring match, but the sparring match would never look like that looks. All right, so now let's check out what it looks like with these two sparring. And I would like to say that we're going to see the exact techniques, but in truth, we're just going to see what we see. So hopefully we'll see some of that stuff. If we do, I'll point it out. But we're just going to see what we see. So these two are going to go at it. Remember, these are the same two people, just trying to show different kinds of interactions. And this is a sparring session with Josh and Maya. All right, so that's an example of those two guys sparring. So you can see that these are the same two people trained in the same stuff, representing the same martial arts. So a lot of times I think because there is no direct compare and contrast between the individuals, we think that like, oh, this guy must have amazing superpowers, or oh, this guy's just gritty, or on the opposite side of that spectrum, this guy's gritty and actually tough, and these people are kind of making stuff up, right? So it's easy to mistake one for the other. So in this, you get a real clean compare and contrast between two people who study in the same school, roughly the same size, and what happens when they get in those three different kinds of engagements. I'm Christopher Hein. Thanks a lot for watching.